All right, I think I'm on. So here we go. Welcome everybody to today's live Q&A. Today we're going to talk about something that as parents you probably have never been taught, but you have definitely felt. Something like, why do I get so overwhelmed when my child is losing it? Or why do I say I want to stay calm, but when something happens I explode anyway? Or why do I feel so guilty after yelling at my kid? Last week, we talked about psychological wealth, basically, the idea that your child's progress isn't enough if you, as a parent, still feel anxious, tired, overwhelmed, or like you're in survival mode. Today, we're going to go a little deeper because if you're here today, I know that you are the type of parent who has read the books, tried different methods, maybe different therapies, and knowing what to do isn't the problem for you. Doing it when it's hard is. So, I'm going to introduce you to a tool that will actually change how you parent, not overnight, but through daily, actual, like doable practice. I call it a mental rep, and I'll walk you through it. But here's what we're going to cover: why regulating your nervous system matters more than any parenting strategy, why your child's behavior improves when you improve your reactions and your own behavior, and how to start training your brain to respond differently in hard moments. Like I said, that's the hard part, right? Being calm and collected isn't something that you magically become, it's something that you build one rep at a time. So, you already know what to do. You have probably heard it before. Stay calm, follow through, be consistent. But in the moment, it's very hard. You freeze, you snap, maybe you give in, and then you think, why can I do what I know I should do? If you want a calmer home, less chaos, and to feel confident in your parent, to feel confident that you know how to handle those challenges, this is the work required to achieve that kind of progress. The way you think, the way you feel, and respond as a parent differently affects how your child's behavior shows up in your life. So, if you want fewer meltdowns, fewer power struggles, and less resistance, you have to build the mental strength to stay calm even when things are hard. And that actually requires practice. Like I said, it's not something that just magically happens. Now, if you're a parent and you're thinking, I just need to find the right strategy, let me tell you something. Strategies only work when you're calm enough to use them. The real work is changing your default behavior when you feel triggered. This is why sometimes when someone offers you a strategy, you say, I already know that. It doesn't work for me, or it doesn't work for my child. That is not a knowledge problem. That's a reps problem. You don't need more information. You don't need another strategy. What you need is more practice doing the hard thing because things get worse before they get better. So let's break it down. Your brain works like a muscle. Whatever you practice the most becomes your default. So if you constantly practice yelling when you feel overwhelmed, giving in to keep the peace from your child, losing it when things go wrong, then your brain wires those responses in and they become automatic. They become your default. Mental reps are the opposite. They are small, daily ways of practicing a different way of thinking, a different way of reacting, and a different way of behaving until that becomes your new default. It's just like at the gym. The more that you work out the muscle, the stronger it gets. The more reps you get in, the easier it becomes to stay calm when your child is melting down, to set a boundary without feeling guilty or scared of the consequences. The more it's easier to pause before you start yelling or to handle hard moments without spiraling. That's actually what leads to fewer behaviors. When you change your behavior, your child behavior follows. So, here's how you can start doing your mental reps today. Step one is to pick a hard moment you want to respond to differently. Think, for example, when my child screams at me, or when they ignore me for the third time, or when they hit their sibling. Being specific gives your brain a clear thing to focus on. So you work on training your brain for one specific trigger, not trying to fix everything. There's a difference between saying, I need to be more calm or I need to stop yelling, than when my child ignores me for the fourth time, I am going to blank, right? You breaking it down and being extra specific to one single thing, one single moment, one single trigger makes it more doable and more intentional for your brain, which makes it easier to accomplish, so allows you to see results faster and build momentum to continue doing it and not give up. Step 2 is to visualize the moment before it happens. Take 30 seconds each day to mentally walk through that moment. You already know the situation when your child screams or when they tantrum. It happens on a daily basis for you. Just this time, imagine yourself staying calm or doing the thing that you know you should be doing. So you have your moment, you say it out loud. When my child screams, I will take a breath. Or when he tantrums, I will walk away for 3 seconds. The reason why this works because your brain cannot tell the difference between reality and imagination. Your brain is literally a combination of electrical responses. It's neurons talking to each other with electrical firing. So when you walk yourself through a visualization, you are creating that new electrical pathway in your brain. Basically, a mental rep. You're telling your brain, like, repeat this pathway, so that when the moment comes in real life, it doesn't feel new for your brain. You already have practiced what you need to do. Number 3 is reflect, not judge yourself after the fact. Ask yourself, did I do something different today? What did I learn about X situation, or about my child, or about myself? What will I try again tomorrow? This is important because it gives you a feedback loop. This turns every hard moment into a rep, which is the very thing needed to change our behavior. The problem is that we think that behavior change happens in a vacuum, quick, in isolation, with one strategy, and it's actually the complete opposite. Behavior change is a process of mental reps and iterations. So you need to get those mental reps, to get those feedback loops, to change your behavior constantly over time. That actually is what creates that behavior change when it compounds over time. It's very, very important to, because it's very tempting, so it's very important to avoid trying to change everything at once. 0 to 100 is probably not our best friend. It's much easier to break down what you want to achieve in small, doable steps instead of giant leaps. So really, really focus on one moment, one event, one single thing. That's what helps rewire your brain, because you're giving it a simple task. Same idea of, we don't want to just, I'm going to be calmer, or I'm going to stop yelling at my child. You want to pick a specific event, a specific time in which you're going to behave differently. This gives you intention, and it gives your brain a target, which again, it makes it easier for you to build momentum to continue that behavior change over time. So that's what I have to share with you guys today. I'm going to open up for questions. Share with me, what are you struggling with? Let me see this. I got a question from a parent that says, I notice my kid acts worse when I'm overwhelmed. Is that really connected, or am I imagining it? 100% connected, 0% imagining it. I don't quote me on it. Well, no, actually, let me tell you. There are these studies that actually measure how quick it takes for our brain to detect emotional responses via our body language. And it's like less than the blink of an eye. So before you can even say anything, your child's brain is already detecting that overwhelm and actually reacting to it. So 100% it's really connected. So if you want to help your child have less behaviors or react less, you definitely want to start with that overwhelmed feeling from you so that you can help them regulate easier and faster. My days are nonstop. How am I supposed to regulate myself when there is no break? I totally understand where you're coming from when it's hard to see, like, how am I supposed to regulate myself when, it never stops. What I always tell parents is two things. Number one, regulating yourself is not a luxury, is actually a priority, and is actually what precedes being able to achieve the goals that you have, whether it is as a parent or reducing behavior challenges. So regulating our nervous system and taking the time to actually regulate as a parent is really necessary, is required to what you need to do. The other portion that I say is that you actually don't need to take time. You don't need to add more to regulate your nervous system. What you need to do is change the way that you respond. Exactly what I'm talking about, mental reps. Our perceptions feed our reality, right? What we think is actually how we experience our emotions, how we experience our life. So if you're able to start practicing those mental reps in those moments that are really challenging for you or for your child, you will actually start regulating your nervous system without having to do more, without having to take time out of your day. Just pick one event that you are going to start changing your behavior towards and see how that helps shape how you regulate yourself. Ooh, a lot of questions. Let me see. Um, we got a question from a parent. How does visualize that word? Visualizing, I can't say it. A hard moment help if the real thing feels way more intense. So the goal of that strategy is actually to see yourself doing something different, because what I mentioned is true. Your brain cannot tell the difference between reality and between imagination. So, what we're trying to do with that strategy is actually create connections in your brain that have not been formed before. That way, when you actually experience the reality moment, it's easier for you to access those connections and those behavioral patterns for your brain. The real thing is going to feel more intense because you're not making it up in your head, right? However, if you are able to see yourself with a different response, it will be equally as effective. So that's how that can help you. We got a question from a dad. I'm confused. Why do we need to work so much on ourselves? Shouldn't kids just listen when a parent tells them something? Great question. I totally understand why that feels challenging, to have to work on yourself so much in order for your child to change their behavior. Um, and yes, kids should listen when a parent tells them something sometimes, and it really depends on what your goal is as a parent, right? If your goal is for your child to just listen to you and do as they're told, then yes. But if that is not working for you and that is not what you want, who you want to be as a parent, or the relationship that you want to have with your child, then I would say no. So it really depends on what is important to you. Now, the reason why you have to work so much on yourself to be able to get your child to be more cooperative or decrease his behavior challenges is because behavior does not happen in a vacuum. I just talked to a parent who asked this question of like, well, I just need to understand the diagnosis of my child in order to know what strategy to use with them for this behavior. And I hear that a lot. Parents think that behavior have one sole cause, and behavior is actually more complex than that. Your child plays a role, their diagnosis plays a role, their environment plays a role, and you play a role. And that's why it's so important that you work on your parenting skills and strategies, because you play a role in that behavior and you can directly control that role that you play. So if you work on that, then you're able to influence your child's behavior, typically for the positive. And that's why it's so important that parents work on their parenting skills and strategies. Let's see. If kids learn from consequences, why does my reaction matter so much? Well, your reaction is a consequence. So that's why it matters. Kids do learn, everybody, behavior is learned through our consequences, even though there are multiple factors playing a role in behavior. It is learned through consequences, and a reaction is a consequence. So whatever they pick up in terms of that consequence is what they're going to continue to do. And that's why your reaction matters a lot, because it's a consequence to that behavior, regardless of of your intention, if you intended to be or not. We got a question from a mom. My parents didn't worry about nervous systems or mental reps, and we listened. Why is it different now? That's a great question that I hear a lot from parents, actually, about how they were parented differently and how they don't understand the connection between how they were parented differently and why children are not responding the same way now. The difference is that you're a different generation. Kids are growing up with in a world of instant gratification. They are growing up with increasing access to technology, to information, to basically what we call dopamine hits all the time. And their ability to tolerate frustration, to handle negative emotions, to wait, to tolerate things not going their way has actually significantly diminished. And so the parenting strategies that your parents used for you and your generation worked because you grew up in a different environment that what your child is growing up in. And that's where the disconnect is, that parents these days have a lot more to juggle and to understand, and why those traditional old school strategies are not working for newer generations, because as the generation evolves, new parenting strategies are required. That's why that's different. And I believe that's all I have for today. I'll see you guys next week.